So and welcome to our webinar for C21 offer holders who've been offered a place to study medicine at Cardiff University. I am Dr. Sajid Patel and I'm the Year 2 Deputy Director. And in no particular order, we have Dr. Hannah West.
Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Hannah West and I am the Year 1 Deputy Director at Cardiff.
And we have Dr. Jamie Reid.
Evening everyone, I'm Jamie Reid, I'm the Dean of Medical Education. My clinical background is in geriatric medicine at University Hospital Wales. Nice to see you sort of this evening.
Well, so I'm going to be speaking on the screen, but I have multiple screens open. So if I'm not looking directly at the screens because I'm reading something else, and I have messages coming through from all angles today. But just to make you aware, so all sessions are available in both languages, English and Welsh, and this session will be in English. And all sessions will be recorded and will be available as soon as we make it possible available to you. They will be made available. And with no longer ado, I'm going to ask you to put the questions in the QA section, and I will then assign the question to the appropriate panelists, and hopefully we can answer all your questions before the session ends. So the first question we have is from Anonymous. So how can we navigate through what we need to and don't need to know for the exams? Do you want to start with Hannah and then I'll add a bit of content of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically everything we teach at Cardiff is aligned to higher level learning outcomes, which come from the GMC. We put this all together, and basically anything that we are delivering, we align to this, and we make it very clear to our students what these learning outcomes are. So for example, something that I teach on is explain the structure of a cell and the organelles. So it's very clear from that learning outcome kind of what you need to know from that. And then we will deliver content that aligns to that. So when you come to revise for exams, you can have all those learning outcomes in front of you, all your kind of teaching material, and hopefully that can help you kind of to prepare for the exams.
Just to add to that, we as a faculty are helping frame that for you. So within the team session, we will deliver the content that you need to deal with, that you need to know. And so we do framework it for you so that you're not left on your own trying to work out, do I need to know this, do I not need to know this? That is our job to sort of signpost you and support you in that understanding what needs to be done. Added to that, we'll also have end of case quizzes. And end of case quizzes also help you understand what you do know, what you don't know, and what types of things will be assessed.
Mm-hmm. And these quizzes are really nice. Sorry, Saj. They're really nice because they're a kind of nice way to kind of test yourself and kind of gauge what you need to learn and what you already know, so you can kind of structure your revision around them.
Good. Yeah. This is a brilliant one for you, Hannah. It is perfect. What science content is covered in the first term?
Yes, so the first term of your Year 1 at Cardiff University is a module of learning called Platform for Clinical Science. And we refer to it to PCS all the time. We always call it PCS. And it kind of does what it says on the tin, Platform for Clinical Science. You're basically learning everything you need to know to be able to apply that to kind of a clinical setting. So within that, kind of from day 0, really, you'll be having kind of anatomy sessions where you'll go and learn about anatomy. You'll have kind of physiology sessions where we'll teach you a lot about physiology of the different systems. And in terms of how that kind of module is structured, it's pretty much 3 months, the whole of the first term of university. And each week we've kind of structured it in a way that you'll have a week on a particular topic. So for example, you might have a week on the abdomen where you'll go and learn everything you need to know about the abdomen. You may have a week on cells, so you go learn everything you need to know about cells, cell signaling, cell cycle, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of the first term. And yeah, like I said, it's Platform for Clinical Science, and it really does kind of set the threshold for what you need to know before you go into the next stage of the curriculum.
Yeah, so just to add to that, it is intense and there's a lot of science involved there, around human physiology. And basically, most of the time, we're trying to teach you normal physiology, normal anatomy, normal conditions. We have quite a strong understanding or belief that if you understand normal, pathophysiology becomes easier to understand. You can understand what is going wrong once you understand the basics. And we move away from rote learning, but understanding concepts and basic ideas, so you can apply that in multiple settings. Does anyone have, Jamie, do you want anything else to that?
No, I think that's a really good overview. And I think, you know, it goes without saying that all of us, A, really look forward to seeing you, and B, want you to have a brilliant time and absolutely succeed. So I know coming to university, for those of you, particularly where this is the first degree that you're undertaking, it feels like a big deal, but actually it should be exciting. You know, it is a big change. It is learning in a different way, but it's a great opportunity, and clearly very biased, but we think you're going to have a fantastic time. We have a great supportive faculty, and there's always lots of questions before people start about what am I going to learn, how am I going to prepare, what do I need to do over the summer. We will make sure that we give you all of the skills and all of the content you need, explain all of the assessments as we go through, because you know, we're a team. We want you to have a great time whilst we're here, and yeah, it's in all of our interest to make sure that you really fly when you get here.
So Poppy's asked, are there any placements in hospitals in the first 2 years? So we'll go with year 1 first, Hannah.
Yeah, so the placements typically start from the January of your first year, and they're kind of based across South Wales, and yes, there are some placements that you may be going into hospitals. They kind of mix them up depending on what you're learning within that period of time. I don't know if you want to comment on year 2 as well.
Yeah, so I mean, year 2 again is mostly GP practices. So you are assigned to a GP practice, and within the year 2, there's autumn and spring semester, so you'll be assigned different practices for autumn and spring. So you're not always going to the same place, and you really try and make sure you move around a little bit and not stay in the same sort of vicinity. But with that, there will be some possible placements depending on the skill or the actual case that you're looking at. And if it lends itself to hospital, we will send you to hospital. But in essence, we don't think it's quite ready in the first 2 years to be bedside in a hospital. That's more in years 3, 4, and 5. Years 1 and 2 are more into smaller groups and GP practices.
Mm-hmm.
Another year 1 question. So sorry, Hannah, it is going to be you again. How much A-level maths is involved in year 1 medicine?
That is a good question. So yeah, in terms of A-level maths, I can't really comment on that, but there is maths in year 1 of medicine. Kind of from very early on in the term, in that platform for clinical science term, you have tutorials that are focused around applying maths to medicine, really. And this is led by a whole person. There's a member of team who is the numeracy lead. And actually within that first, I think it's within the first month next year, you have a numeracy test. And you'll take the numeracy test, and if there is any flags that perhaps you need some extra support, the numeracy lead will work really closely with you to help with any issues that you may be having at the time. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of understanding how to kind of work out formulas in relation to kind of medication and things like that very early on within year 1. And yeah, it is something that we examine on, so it's very important.
So all the papers, knowledge papers will have some numeracy in them, a percentage numeracy in them. But just to get away from that, it's not A-level necessarily numeracy, it's numeracy overall around patients and dosages and calculations. But we don't expect you to memorize formulas. We expect you to apply formulas. So we'll give you the formula and we'll give you the information that you need, and then you add it, or you apply it into the formula, add it to the formula, make the adjustments you need to make, and work out what needs to be done. And that's really important, because obviously working at dosages, you know, be suboptimal or overdose. You know, suboptimal is not very really useful. And if you overdose somebody, it can be harmful or detrimental, or in some cases lethal. So it's quite important that you are numeric literate during this time. But again, there's a lot of support within the faculty when it comes to that. Good question. So what's the difference between someone can answer this for me as well. What's the difference between a seminar, a workshop, and a tutorial?
Oh, so I can definitely comment on tutorial. And this is something that we have a lot of in PCS. So tutorials are, for us, it may be different for different universities, but for us on the medicine course, a tutorial is kind of a teaching session, which is quite a collaborative learning experience, really. So the way that we run our tutorials in PCS is you will have a workbook to work through, a list of questions. You'll have teaching beforehand, so you'll be taught on the subject of the tutorial. And then you'll come along with kind of your booklet of questions, and you will work in small groups. The tutorials are normally about 40 students, and you'll work within small groups of whoever's around you, really. We kind of encourage between like 4 and 6, and kind of work through the answers. And it's led by a member of staff, so one or two members of staff. They'll come along and kind of help answer any questions. And if there's a common question, we may try and teach the group about how to answer the question. But it's very kind of student-led and also collaborative, as I've already said. Like, you get the chance to kind of work with your peers quite closely. Seminar, what would you say for seminar? Is this more like a lecture, I guess?
I think they're kind of, if I'm being really honest, I think they're kind of used interchangeably.
Yeah.
And I think you'll hear different people probably use the terms at different times. I suppose what we've really tried to do with our curriculum is make it as interactive as possible. You know, we're not a course that involves a lot of sitting in a lecture theatre or in a classroom and having information kind of talked at you, because we know that actually, while some topics it's important to have that introduction, the best way for people to learn, for that information to stick, is for them to have the opportunity to interact. And that really links to what you'll be doing as doctors as well. You know, you don't sit down as groups of doctors in a big room and just listen to information. You interact with patients, you talk to each other, you work as part of teams. So yeah, we sort of use them interchangeably, I guess, because what we're trying to emphasize is that interactive nature. Is that fair, Hannah and Sarge?
This is what I don't, in my mind, there's no difference between the lot. So I do seminars, workshops, and tutorials, and I'm sitting there going, there's not much difference between them in my mind, and therefore, you know, why do we use different terms? And I think it's just preference more than anything else. Okay. This is a really good one, and I think this is really supportive. So, how should we prepare for PCS before September? Can I say something quickly?
Of course.
Rest.
Yeah, please rest. Please come to us refreshed. Have a summer.
Yes. For me, more than anything else, is understanding you put so much effort into the A levels, and it's really to such an extent that coming here and doing more work is not helpful. We are here to support you. We will help you through the autumn semester and the rest of the course. And it's nice to take the real time points where you can actually rest. And there's nothing to plan for. There's nothing, no exams you can go to prep for. And take, it's literally 2 months. Is it just 2 months, something like that? 2 months off and relax and recharge. I don't know if you have anything else to that. I know So in the first year, how much of our study time is independent?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know how to answer this, because there is a lot of independent study, but it can be tutor-led. So I was already talking about the kind of tutorials that we have. You are kind of working as a team doing some independent study there, but actually you are being led by a tutor, so you're being supported the whole time. And as Jamie has already alluded to, we're really supportive. I would say probably that it's probably about 60-40 kind of tutor-led to independent learning led in the first term, but this changes slightly in the second term, which is when we start to introduce something called case-based learning. I'm sure you've come across this in your studies of medical schools, where we work in very small groups of about 10 students. And each week we have, every 2 weeks we have a case. And this can be anything, we could say like cardiac or pulmonary system. And within that 2 weeks, what we really want to do is kind of introduce a scenario, and we want students to kind of work with their tutor to come up with learning outcomes. And in that period, you do your own independent learning, and there is a lot of independent learning for this. You are fully supported by lectures that will cover all of the higher learning outcomes that you need to kind of cover for the case. But there is a lot of independent study, probably more so than in that first term going into cases. And you have cases from the January of your second year all the way around to the end of your second year. Would that be fair?
I think that's a fair comment, and I think what we're trying to do within the course is you start in year one, and we do provide a lot of support. And as you go through the course, we try to pull away a little bit and allow more SDL time. But SDL time doesn't mean you're left on your own, to your own devices. We are still a faculty here to support you. So if you have questions or queries or don't quite understand something, you can always come back to us. What we ask you to is not default back to us. Try and find out for yourself first. Try and work it out for yourself first, and then come to us with the queries or concerns or misunderstandings, and we'll sit down with you and work it out with you and try to help you understand. So self-directed learning is not simple swim type of event. This is more of a sort of we're going to throw you in, but with a life jacket, just to get you in there, and that's us. I think I have asked been told to remind you there's important information going in the chat, particularly around accommodation and finances. So if you look in the chat for those links to accommodation and finances, pretty much within the QA section, you'll answer something about curriculum and other aspects and placements. And we'll need the finance and accommodation in the chat links if you don't mind. Next question. So how is a typical student's timetable in the first year structured? I think that's all you will get, Hannah.
That's fine. So shall I start from day 0 and then work my way around? It does change. So we'll start with PCS. So I've already kind of spoke a little bit about how PCS is structured. We kind of have themed weeks from the end of September up until kind of mid-December, depending on when the term finishes. So at the beginning of the week, our weeks run on a Wednesday, from Wednesday to Wednesday, and there's a reason for that. There's like kind of logic for our madness there. And that's because Wednesdays are always plenary day, so which is plenary lectures. So you'll go sit in a lecture theatre and listen to someone kind of talk about the subject that you're going to be learning about for that week. So Wednesday, you'll go and have a series of lectures. On Thursday, you may have anatomy sessions or maybe a PCS tutorial. And again, on the Friday, it may be a PCS tutorial. The tutorials typically last about 2 hours, anatomy sessions between about 2 and 3 hours, I'm pretty sure, in the first term. And then again, on Monday, you may have some more kind of plenary lectures, and then on the Tuesday, more tutorials and more anatomy sessions. There isn't a hard and fast rule because we're really dependent on who else needs rooms as to how the week looks, but that's kind of roughly how the week looks for PCS. And that's just kind of repeated throughout PCS, depending on whatever kind of area of the body you're kind of studying within that week. So that's kind of the first term. Then from January onwards, when we're in cases, you start case on a Monday. In a Monday, you will go and meet your case group. So that's you and usually between 9 and kind of 10 other students will go to a kind of seminar setting, and you'll sit with your case-based learning leads. So I have case-based learning groups in the first term for year ones, and we have a 3-hour session where we will read the first part of our clinical scenario. We figure out what we already know about this kind of clinical scenario, and that we kind of see where our gaps in our knowledge may be. On the Tuesday, there's normally either placement or clinical skills. So you'll go out into the community and have these. Wednesday, plenary day, so having lectures on a Wednesday. Thursday, again, you may have anatomy, clinical skills, or placement. It really depends on the timetable. And then Friday is normally more plenaries. So this is kind of repeated again in the second week of the case. And it's kind of that rough structure throughout the whole of kind of January through to about the end of May when case finishes. So that's year one. It was just year one we wanted to chat about, wasn't it?
I mean, year 2 is pretty much the same as your spring semester. So it's year 2 all case-based learning is a 2-week cycle. I think the only thing we're going to add to that is a medical student does not have a typical calendar. A medical student calendar is totally different than anybody else's calendar. In that, it is 9 to 5 pretty much every day.
It's 9 to 5.
Wednesday afternoons. it is, you've got to realize that even within the course, and you're going to find friends in other courses who will have time to do other things that you may not have time for. And it's for us, it's just making sure you balance out your work life. There's a good balance between your work and enjoyment, and having fun with your friends, but also engaging in the course and making sure you hit the milestones that you want to hit. And it's just balancing. I think sometimes students struggle with that aspect of it, and just help you get that one right.
Yeah, I think I would definitely agree with that. One of my year one students said she has friends with someone on another course, and she was like, oh, you know, they have three hours contact a week. And I was like, well, you've had that this morning. So it's very different.
Yeah. So added on question to that. So we already answered about independent, how much was independent, but do we give presentations at the end? Now, I'm not sure what the answer is, but do we give presentations? So do students give presentations? And the answer to that simply is yes. And I'll let Hannah elaborate a little bit. What was
the question, sorry?
Do they give presentations?
The presentations. So yes. So as part of your year one, you will do student selected components, and actually Sarju is the year one student selected component lead. So he knows a lot about this, and I hope I don't mess this up too much. So you do presentations. Within your SSEs, you have 4 of them, and 2 of them you have to give a presentation for. So the first is a pathophysiology presentation, where you will work with a group and your anatomy leads to kind of try and figure out why somebody has died, essentially. So you'll go through the knowledge that you currently have and then work out kind of the cause of death, and then you will present that to your peers. And this is in kind of groups of about a quarter of the cohorts, normally between about 75 and 80 students. You present that to your peers. So that's kind of the first one you do for your SSE. The second one is the practical research experience, which you'll go and work with a research laboratory, and you'll learn and do some kind of laboratory work. And then you need to put together a presentation to explain what you did, your findings, your results, and your conclusions. So we actually have these next Thursday, don't we? We have these assessments. So is it next? Yeah, it's next Thursday. So yeah, another chance to do a presentation. Again, it's in front of about a quarter of the cohort. So you will be doing your presentation in front of them. So the way that we normally ask the students to structure themselves within the group is that half the group will give a presentation and the other will answer questions, and the whole group is marked on the overall performance.
I must be one of the cooler ones as well, because I do ask them to present your PCS as well. So one of the things I ask them to do is actually, and I think most students have during A levels or during some Welsh back done presentations to groups. And part of what we do within PCS also is to present back to your group. So if you've done some learning, present it back. Because one of the things that we understand within the GMC is that medical students also have historical teachers. And so within the context of teaching, they need to understand how to teach. And one of the things I've learned quite quickly is that standing in front of people, blurting out all the stuff is not teaching them anything necessarily, right? There's lots of things you need to do within the teaching environment, which learning's happening. And so, you know, we do lots of these type of things, but we do it in a supportive way. So for me, you don't present by yourself ever. It's always as a group. But that also means you get some support and some backup there. But we try to make it as fun and inclusive as possible when we do present.
Yeah, we do know that some students find giving presentations difficult, and if that's the case, we're always open to kind of a discussion about ways that we can make it a little bit more easy for individuals to get you kind of used to it, because it's a lot to do in your first year of university. So we're really supportive in terms of actually getting you through that assessment as well.
So how do you choose where students go for placements throughout the course?
I'm not sure if I can answer a placements question. Do you have any idea?
I do you want to pass it to Jamie first, and I can add on to that, or shall I answer it?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you both very much. It's a really good question. I think what I'd say is we pride ourselves in the fact that we try and give you as much exposure to clinical medicine throughout the course as possible. Actually becoming a doctor you need very much the content that's being provided within the university settings, but it is a bit of an apprenticeship, really. Actually, you need to be on the job, you need to be working with doctors, with allied health professionals, with nurses as part of that multidisciplinary team. So we want to give you as much and as varied experience as possible. And what that means is that the vast majority of our students will have very varied placements. And it also means that you'll spend time in lots of different places, some very big hospitals like University Hospital Wales, some much smaller hospitals like some of our community hospitals, and of course, loads of placements with our fantastic GP partners who work in the many different practices across Wales. So in terms of where students go, you'll get a big variety of all of those. And what it means is that most students will spend some time in most area of Wales throughout the course. That being said, we recognise that for some people, there are extenuating circumstances or specific health or financial or social reasons why that's more difficult. So the majority of our students will spend time in lots of different areas across Wales. And therefore, we try and do that as equitably as possible with a reasonable mix of big placements, little placements, some close to Cardiff, some further away. That isn't to say that we won't adjust that if individuals have got very good reason that they need to be in one specific place or another. A bit like I said before, and as both Sarge and Hannah have said as well, it's in all of our interest to make sure this succeeds. We don't want to put barriers in your way. And indeed, if you have got specific circumstances, it would be helpful for us to know. Please let us know early on. We promise we will not use them against you at all. It's so much better if we know, because we can absolutely support you. And I think we have got a really, really supportive team. I have to say, Sarge and Hannah in particular are absolute superstars in terms of supporting the students within their cohort.
Thank you.
You're part of it. I think just adding to what Jamie said, one of the things that's core for the faculty is that our student welfare comes first. The course has always been second to that. Because we know you getting onto our course, we know you're capable of doing this. And so we're not concerned about that. We're concerned about your health and well-being. And we know if you're healthy and happy and enjoying yourself, the course will be a breeze. And you can't, of course, without much effort. So we always focus on the health of our students first, and make sure we accommodate anything they need when it comes to their health and well-being before the course. So another one, there's a lovely question down the bottom, and I'm trying to rush to it, but I'm going to do it first. How much dissection will you do in your first year?
Yeah, a lot. So I kind of alluded to the fact earlier that kind of from the first week you'll be working in the anatomy centre. So you'll be working with the anatomy team. So the anatomy team are based away from the main hospital where the rest of your teaching is. They're based down in the main campus of the hospital. The main campus of the university. And yeah, you'll be doing kind of dissections very, very early on, and then throughout your first year, that certainly.
Yeah, so again, the anatomy, we're making sure that we take the anatomy leads needs and understand they need what our students need, and take Hannah, which is our Hannah Shaw, which is our lead on that, her opinion on what our students should know and what they that we should assess them on as a part of them. I love this question. It's anonymous and I can't name who said it, but this is for all of us. What is your favorite topic to teach? Wow, this is a good question.
Oh, I like that question. Can I go first?
Yes.
Good. Thank you. So I am quite biased because my background is in genetics. So I'm really, really, really interested in genetics, and any opportunity I get to teach genetics, I absolutely adore. But I also love teaching pharmacology because that was my first degree, and I have a secret love for it. So yeah, pharmacology and genetics are mine. I've got two, sorry.
That's all right. Jamie?
I'm going to be really biased as well, because being a geriatrician, clearly my entire career is about older people. So I really like talking to students about the fact that we have an aging population and the consequence this has. But the particular bit of that is the communication skills aspect, because actually to be a good doctor, you've got to have amazing communication skills to look after people when they're often at their most scared, they're most vulnerable, and feeling probably emotions that they haven't felt before. And I think one of the best interventions we can do is just listen, and actually that's something that we really focus on very early on in the course.
Brilliant. So I think, one of the things to put in the context is obviously Jamie's a clinician, so he's a medical doctor, whereas Hannah and I are PhDs, so we're both scientists.
You're the proper doctors.
You're the proper doctors, real ones, yeah.
Take that.
So for me, I honestly, I didn't think about that, but I even just enjoy being in front of students. So I love tutorials more than anything else. Lectures I can give, but I prefer more engaging stuff with students, particularly around cardiac. So my research around cardiac and the heart. So I understand the content really well, and I love teaching that part. I really like the question as well. How frequently will we be examining?
That is a good question. So it changes throughout your years at Cardiff. So I can certainly comment on your first year. So within your first year, you have two different types of assessments. So you have formative assessments and summative assessments. So if you're not aware of the difference, formative is essentially, it doesn't count for your overall grade. So it's an opportunity to kind of test yourself, to practice the skills, and to pass the exams. The exam that we have, the final exam, is based on single best answer questions. So you kind of get a question and you have 5 options. And you might not be used to this style of examining. So we have formative exam, a big formative exam in December, and we have another one in January. So again, this doesn't count towards your final grade. You also have formative exams. We've already kind of mentioned the fact that we have formative exams in the form of quizzes throughout the year. So you have kind of 3 quizzes in that first term, and then you have a quiz after every single case. So you have 6 formative quizzes. So pretty much the whole way through, you've got formative quizzes. And then in terms of the full exam that you'll be sitting, we have 1 exam in the first year at Cardiff, and that's referred to as the S1 exam, and it's the final summative exam, so it is your grade, and that normally happens around June, beginning of June time. So you also have I mentioned earlier, you have a numeracy exam quite early on. This doesn't count your overall grade, it's kind of just an opportunity to see how you're doing in terms of numeracy. So that's the exams, but then you are also, when we kind of look at a student at exam board, we also have to take into consideration their professional behaviours and their student selected component as well. So I've already mentioned that you have 4 SSE, student selected components, in your first year. So you have the pathophysiology, the practical research experience, you have a literature review, and then you have a medical humanities project. And basically they're referred to as an SSE portfolio, aren't they, Sarge? That's correct, isn't it? Yeah. And you have to pass all the SSE portfolio in order to kind of pass your first year, as well as the S1 exam. The professional behaviours, the things we kind of focus on in that is your attendance. So you have to attend 80% of teaching sessions in year 1. We can drop this down if there are some mitigating circumstances, but the absolute lowest we can possibly go is 70%. And we have to be able to demonstrate that there were some circumstances such as illness or other kind of things that are going on in your life that could affect your attendance on course throughout the year. So they're the kind of the main things that we look at. But in terms of examinations, it's that S1 exam that you sit in beginning of June. That's the big one for year 1. So that's just year 1.
It's a bit
a lot, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. You're assessed in 4 domains. So like you kind of say, knowledge domain, which are your papers, your knowledge papers. Your practice domain, which are your writing, and in latter years, years 2 and 4, which are your ISCI, which is your integrated clinical structure, integrated structure clinical examination. I'll get that right in my head as well. So that's basically your practical exam. And then professionalism, like Hannah said, attendance. But that's because we strongly believe everything you're going to learn is not by book learning. It's by experiencing and being present in the room and talking to people is part of your learning. So we ensure that that forms part of your progression. And the last one is SSCs. we're moving away from high-stakes single exams to more programmatic assessments. So what I kind of says, the SSC is a portfolio of 4 pieces of work: the medical humanities, the lit review, PRE, and a patho. And what matters is not you pass each one of them. What matters is the portfolio grade is over 50%. So you can underperform in some areas, but you can still pick that up, compensate in other areas for that. So one exam is not going to fail you. Though we have the S1 exam, I think we're still looking at whether we can split that up into smaller, high stakes exams. And so it's a piece of work that's going on. But in year 2, you have progress tests, which is additional your knowledge papers. There's 4 of them. So it doesn't matter if you fail one progress test, it matters or underperform. Let's not squeeze work out underperform. What matters is your overall grade over the 4 progress tests. And so if you underperform in the first one, you have the opportunity to make up in the second one, and the third and fourth one. So you're not reliant on one bad day determining whether you pass or fail in the assessment. And we're trying to make sure that within all the assessments we have that. So even in year 2, when you basically have 6 stations, what matters is not performance in a station, what matters is your performance across the 6 stations. And so again, it looks at, you can have a bad day, you can have a bad station. We're not gauging your mark, we're gauging your overall performance across the station. And the threshold that I like to tell students is that a threshold isn't a test. It's as such, it's a way of judging your competence. Are you safe? Are you safe and confident to be in front of on progress to the next stage of your training? In particular in year 2, where I sit, are you safe and confident to be in front of patients and starting to interact with patients on a much more interactive or personal level? And that's the threshold should we use, is that am I safe, am I confident? If I'm not, I shouldn't be in front of patients. Do you know anything to that, Jamie?
I'm sorry, I was typing away, trying to get through the multitude of questions that are coming in, and it's just demonstrating that at this time of day I'm really bad at multitasking. So, Sarge, I'm sure it was a perfect answer. I have nothing to add.
I think how can we prepare pieces doing something? I think we already answered that, and I think that there's no preparation in my view that needs to be done. Come to us, relaxed and ready to go.
Yeah.
What resources do you recommend using for revision? That's a difficult one. I think it's not one size fits all here.
No, it's not. I think when you get to us, not before, please.
Yeah.
There's kind of options for you when you get here. So again, as Sarge kind of said, it's not one size fits all. Something that I know that our students really like to use is something called Osmosis. And as a university, we have license to that. I like Osmosis. I like going on and watching the little videos, so it's great. A really nice kind of revision tool. And there's also something that's freely available online called Khan Academy. Again, a really good resource. I'm pretty sure you can get them on YouTube, but they have a web page as well. Really nice, I love it. In terms of preparing for the exam, there is something called Peerwise that you will have available to you at Cardiff when you arrive. This is something that's put together by assessments, and students can upload their own questions to it, and you can kind of practice your way through questions, and it's quite a nice way to kind of gauge your learning as well. So they're the first that popped to my mind. Can anyone think of anything else?
You know, I think it goes back to starting to understand your learning and understand how you individually learn, rather than saying I've got to fit in with other people who are learning. And I think we've tried to make sure that students, the ones I deal with, you stop looking at what everyone else is doing, think about yourself and what you need to do to understand the content. And if one thing isn't working, try something else. You know, within our curriculum, we deliver content. But if the way we delivered it, and we try to do it multiple different ways, because we understand all our students have different ways of learning. So some things we deliver lectures, but also supplement now with PCS, case-based learning, the tutorials, the workshops, which are really important. Whereas also you get clinical skills and practical sessions. We try to mix them up a little bit. But if the way we deliver the content doesn't work for you, find another way. In the Khan Academy, Osmosis, go somewhere else. I'm a very visual learner, so I've taken a long time to learn from a book. You show me a video or a diagram, it's quite easy for me to understand that quite quickly. And it's just understanding the personal self.
I agree. And I think the other thing I would say is that, to be honest, the best thing you can do is engage really well with the sessions when they're delivered, because we've got world experts delivering their topics, world experts in research, but also predominantly world experts in education who are really at the forefront of what they're delivering. So being there and engaging is actually the best thing you can do. But the other thing is, if you find you're struggling, and I've seen there's a similar question a little bit further down, please don't feel you're alone. Actually, we're here to support you. We know that it is different going from learning, for example, A levels to being at university. We know that it's a transition, not just in the way that you're learning, but often it's a transition that for some people, they're living away from home for the first time. They're having to cook and clean and wash for themselves. We know that's a big deal for some people. So if you're finding it's tricky, please let us know. We're absolutely here to help and want to try and provide that support. I think I told this story last week at the webinar, but I basically lived off spaghetti bolognese for 6 months and I now can't eat it anymore. So, one of the bits of preparation is definitely chill. And secondly, please have more than one meal that you can cook, because I can vouch for the fact that you get bored of it very, very quickly otherwise.
Oh, we actually, last year, we put together, all the staff put together a student cookbook, and it's an online cookbook that we send out to the year ones on their first week. Lots of different recipes that we as academics can cook. So if we can do it, anyone can do it. So just speaking from personal experience of cooking. So yeah, we'll help you along a little bit, but yeah, prepare for that, definitely.
I'm going to moderate my previous answer to a question. What do you do? How can we prepare for Mega School? I'm going to moderate by saying, cook for yourself, do your own washing, go do your own shopping, because when you arrive here, that's what you're going to have to do, right?
Yeah.
That was good prep work. A couple of good questions. So I'm going to merge them a little bit. So what are the benefits of case-based learning over other teaching methods? And then how does a spiral curriculum work with that?
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to start?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, the benefits of case-based learning over other methods. So I can kind of speak from experience of delivering case-based learning. So case-based learning is really nice because it works in a way that you're able to you take a very student-led approach. You're kind of looking at a clinical scenario. So you're thinking quite early on about the patient. And we encourage from kind of the very first case-based learning session, a really holistic view to looking at that patient. So we like to ask students to really think about kind of not just the biological aspects of the case, but also the social and the psychological. So we're really kind of training you to kind of think of this patient and their family and their friends as kind of as a whole being. So I think that that's really a great aspect of case-based learning. You get to choose what you want to learn more of, which I think is fabulous, because you get the opportunity to kind of think of a group as actually, no, there's a real big gap in our knowledge here. There's a really nice student-led approach, which we really hope can help you become independent learners very early on in your degree. I've kind of mentioned already that you're really well supported. So although there is a lot of independent learning, all of the higher level learning outcomes, I've kind of said a couple of times now, you'll have teaching on that, so you'll be really well supported to answer anything in an exam about this case. And also you kind of mentioned the spiral curriculum. All of the cases align to content that you would have covered at other points in the curriculum. It's particularly for phase 1. So when you're doing case-based learning, you would have already touched on the heart before you come to the cardiac case. You would have already touched on the lungs before you, so you're really reinforcing your knowledge, and that's kind of how the spiral curriculum works. So that's just for phase 1, but then, which is year 1 and year 2, you'll come back to it again in your later years as well. So you're really reinforcing all of that knowledge that you've kind of gathered in that time. And you have the opportunity to be really honest with yourself, like, actually, no, I really don't fully understand this system. Now's the time to learn it and touch back on the knowledge that I've already got, really.
So both Hannah and I and Jamie, we are both, all of us are case-based learning facilitators, and Hannah and I have been doing this for a long time, and we have an understanding of what we need to do with our students, and we are very supportive of our students. I think Hannah ran one of our sessions the other day, and we can't have them.
Yeah, I want Sarge's students because they're a lot of fun. My
Um,
students are brilliant as well, by the way. Just on both groups because I'm a magpie, so I like, yeah.
I think what Hannah, you know, it's really important. Hannah said, what we're trying to do is lay foundations and then build on them slowly. And pretty key concepts, we come back to them, because we understand that one hit is not when you learn all this stuff. Particularly, you might areas that you understand quite quickly, and there's other areas you might understand it take a bit longer for you to understand. Probably revisit areas, spiral, maybe come back to it. Particularly the key concept, we come back to it more than once or twice, to ensure that you actually understand and we build on solid foundation as opposed to concerns around building on shaky foundation, and you get to some point where the whole thing falls down, but you don't understand the basics. Good one. Anonymous asked, why should I study at Cardiff over other medical schools? Apart from us three being employed by Cardiff,
I think we're going to end up giving a really biased answer because, of course, we want you all to come and study at Cardiff. I saw this earlier, so I did cheat slightly because I was thinking about like what are my top 3 reasons. So I'm sorry for jumping in, but so I've only been at Cardiff for 7 months. I was working at a medical school in England before here. So actually it's been really, really great getting to know the team and getting to know the course. And the top 3 things that I absolutely love working here and why I think it's great to be a student here is 1, great staff. And they are the people you're going to be spending your time with. They're staff who really, really care and are excellent educators. 2, great course. Actually, I do think it's a great course. Hannah's explanation of the spiral curriculum was brilliant. I'm so pleased it's recorded because I'm going to steal it. But actually, we've got a course that is designed to make you brilliant doctors. And it's it's a pretty new course that we're constantly developing. And the 3rd thing is, I think it's a great city. Actually, Cardiff has got a great feel. It's got brilliant people. It's got a really nice centre to it, lovely amounts of diversity. I think it's a really inclusive place to be, but also a fantastic centre for student life. And actually, it's a nice size city, I think. So that's from me.
Hannah?
Yeah, I can definitely add to that. All of those things, and we've already said this. We want to do everything we can to make you become a doctor. So we give you as much support from the first day that you're with us as we possibly can, as much as you need. And there are lots of kind of ways that we can offer support. We are really open as faculty. We want students to come and talk to us if they've got any issues, or even if they don't have issues, just come and talk to us. We are a friendly bunch. But there's lots of kind of other support networks as well. So we have a dedicated support service called MyMedic, and MyMedic is great. They offer a range of different services from kind of like study skills, organizational skills, all the way down to kind of support for your mental health and kind of ad hoc counselling as well. So that we offer lots and lots of support. We want to get you through medicine. We really, really do.
So I just add to that is one of the things that we've got to think about, we talk about students' welfare and well-being, but actually the whole of Wales is a classroom now. So you have, like Jamie said earlier, lots of different environments, rural medicine in Mid Wales and parts of North Wales, versus Cardiff, which is much more metropolitan city. And then you've got smaller towns and you go into the valleys, different. So you experience lots of different types of medicine and delivering different ways in different communities. And you also start to understand how, for example, social deprivation may impact health outcomes, how being in a rural area may impact what you can and can't provide, but there's a GP. One of the things that I learned quite quickly on the course was a rural GP has different skill sets in what they can do, what they need to do. If your hospital is 2 hours away, then they have to do that. When they come in with an injury, with farming injury, and they partially sever the finger, that GP has to put that back together. They can't send them over to A&E because A&E is 2.5 hours away. And if there's only one ambulance in that area and that's already been taken up, that's 4 or 5 hours away. So that GP has to deal with it. Whereas, in Cardiff, they'll send them off to A&E. That's not my problem. So you experience lots of different types of medicine. And that's really, for us, a really good selling point is that you'll experience lots of things and it gives you an ability to make an informed decision about what type of medicine you're going to practice. So are we allowed calculators in any of the exams? Short answer to that is yes, but it's specific on the exam. But you know, the calculator is there to, so like I said before, we provide the details of the assessment and we provide the framework for the, the formulas that you need to apply. And what we ask you to do is apply them and understand how you apply them. So the calculator can't help you apply the formula. You need to understand how to maybe really just the formula and change what you need to find and make that, you know, change the formula around to make sure you've got the right details in. But the calculator isn't, you know, we're not testing your ability to do sine and tangent and calculus. It's more about applying formulas and understanding what you need to do with that. Do you jump straight into science that you learn in A-level in the first month? Go on, Hannah, that's yours.
Yeah, that's the short answer. Yeah, you do. Yeah, we launched straight in. I can't really add anything more than that.
We do, but I think sometimes you know, it's one of those things you just take another level. But what PCS, particularly around the first semester, is making sure, because those students come from all around the world and all around the country to start with, and then all around the world as well. The level of science, or what the science being taught in different areas of the country, are slightly different. And what one student may have learned in their area of the UK, another student may have learned something different in their area. So we try to bring them up to the same level of basic science in what we think they need to do to do cases, and make them able to do case-based learning. What are assignments, tests, and exams like? I think we have sort of pretty much answered that. They're formative and summative. Formative are there to test your, or to give you a framework around, am I ready? Do I know am I good enough yet? Or am I able to pass that exam? And as long as you engage with that, you should pass the summative assessments. How does intercalation, external intercalation work?
I've put quite a lot of answers about intercalation in the chat, so okay. I would definitely recommend having a look there. What I'd just say very briefly is that intercalation is a great opportunity. It allows students between either year 3 and year 4, or year 4 and year 5 of the medical programme to take a year out to undertake, in effect, the final year of another degree course, although some of them are bespoke intercalated one-year programmes. We try and offer that opportunity to as many students who want to undertake it as possible. And if we don't offer the intercalated degree that you'd like to do internally, there are some spaces that we reserve for students to do external intercalated. In order to externally intercalate, we do look at academic ability, because often those places are oversubscribed. So that's one of the things where your performance over the period of time up to then is taken into account. That being said, this year, everyone who wanted to intercalate was able to, and everyone who wanted to go externally was able to do so as well. So it's a great opportunity, and we'll certainly tell you much more about it when you start the course.
Megan's asked a really good question. Is medicine a big step up from secondary school chemistry and biology?
So we kind of mentioned this a little bit, Saj, you did, in terms of it's going to be a step up, like it's going to be a step up, but actually we really like to go back over, and even if it's briefly, what the basics are before we build on it during PCS. So kind of give you a bit of a recap to make sure at least everyone's on the same page. And something that actually we had, this not so much perhaps for you guys, but actually during COVID, we found that actually students were coming to us and they'd missed whole systems from A-level, and we had to get everyone kind of on the same page, and they did. So, and we haven't changed anything. So we make sure that everyone's kind of at the same level before we then build on it, really. I hope that helps to answer that question.
Yep. Next bit, how high could you possibly provide an overview of years 3 to 5? How much time will you spend on placements? 3 to 5 pretty much predominantly is placement, all the way through. So there are bookend weeks where you do your block end, where year 3 weeks is hospital front door. I forgot, I'm getting hung on those moments now. Hospital front door, chronic disease, and something else that's gone out of my head.
Oh, the oncology is the chronic disease, isn't
It's
it?
oncology. Yes, it's
Oncology, okay.
Yeah. Hospital front door oncology. So you have 3 blocks: oncology, hospital front door, and chronic disease. Before that block starts, you'll have a sort of bookend week where they give you the lectures and an introduction to the block, and the key content that's going to be provided in the block and some learning. And then you go on placement, and then during the placement you'll be assigned, for example, hospital front door. You'll be assigned an A&E around one of the hospitals in South Wales or West Wales, and that's where your hospital front door learning will take place in the sense as an apprenticeship in the store, actually help support the medical staff deliver. I can't think of that word in that. Is there anything else you want to add to that? So apparently there are no past papers. How should we practice papers and questions? So if you might answer that. The key there is that you should be practicing. If you understand the concepts and understand the content, for me, past papers is in the wrong way of learning, because when you get into the workspace, that is not the way you learn. There's no assessment that you're learning for. When you're in F1, there's no exam that you learn for to make sure that you know the content, so you do the best by the patient. If you understand what you need to do, and the key here is to do things that's an interest for the patient, rather than learn things for exams, that's for me what you need to start to look at and change your reason for learning from I need to pass an exam to I need to know this because it's the best interest of the patient, or will be in the best interest of the patient if I understand the content. But I think it's going to take a while, definitely 1 and 2 get over the past papers, and I think that's the way to learn. But I don't believe that's the way to do it. Hannah, you or Jamie, anything for that?
Yeah, so the only thing I was going to say is a resource that I know my students use a lot, my personal tutees, is Peerwise, and that's something that you'll have when you get to Cardiff. It's an opportunity to kind of practice questions that other students have kind of thought of as they're doing their work and put on. And you also have these formative quizzes that we've already mentioned. So they're an opportunity to, not that it's not past papers, but it's an opportunity to kind of practice the style of questions which might be new to you. So yeah, not past material that's being examined, but it's an opportunity to get used to the style of questioning more than the actual questions, if that makes sense.
Good. So I'm trying to work out questions that we haven't answered before, or similar questions. So if I'm taking a gap year, should I revise biology and chemistry A levels this summer before I go on? My advice, and again, is not necessarily what I found with gap students coming into the course. It's not their knowledge that's a problem. It's they've gone out a year of not learning and not being involved in active learning, and they find it difficult to ramp that up from day one. So my advice would be to get back in the groove of learning. That year round will change your perspective on things. And so just train yourself to start doing those things that require you to learn and help you learn. Do you want anything to that?
No, absolutely. I completely agree with all of that, Sarge. Just getting back into the rhythm of kind of sitting down with the textbook, really.
So quick one, what are the breaks holidays for like students? 4. So in years 1 and 2, you get 3 weeks over Christmas and 3 weeks over Easter. So if you're years 1 and 2, year 3 and 4 and 5, you get 2 weeks over Christmas. You don't get any Easter. Sorry, year 1 you also finish in June, and then you come back in September, and that happens in year 2 as well. But in year 3, you come back a bit earlier in the year, early September, and you run all the way to the late July, with a break for Christmas. And that's pretty much it, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Christmas, nothing for Easter, and then the summer.
In year 1, I'm not sure if I'm sure the year 1 director wouldn't mind me giving this away. We're introducing a reading week, which essentially you won't have any lectures for a week, and you can have the opportunity to kind of have 5 days off midterm, which is something that the current year 1s are very jealous about. So yeah.
I think we're running out of time. I'm going to answer one more question. For the summative year 1 assessments, will the pieces, the content of PCS, will it be covering CBL? This is what I tell my students. Pretty much all of PCS is covering CBL. So all the PCS is geared around the cases that you're doing in the spring semester. So if you understand the cases, you pretty much covered most of PCS. with a couple of holes, and all you've got to do is work out where those holes are, whose content wasn't covered in PCS, so CBL, and then go further again. So rather than doing both aspects, we case-based learning first, and then fill the holes in PCS. But do you want to add anything to that, Hannah?
No, it's exactly that. It's all examined in that S1 exam. So, and again, you cover stuff that you've already covered in PCS, you build on it. So, yes, you will be examined on PCS and CBL.
I think there's a couple of more, just two more, that's it, and then we're done. Does our performance during the course impact our future ability to specialize in the medical field? And the simple answer to that is no. What happens in medical school stays in medical school. Once you graduate, it's white, the slate is white clean, and it's what you perform in your F1 and your clinical aspects. So don't worry about that, and that's really important. And do you have any general advice to students in general when having to write case studies and handling essays? So we don't have essays. We have a lit review. Well, that's the only one that we actually do some writing with. But most of our content is single best answers rather than essay writing. You know, we don't think you should really write essays. We need to gauge the reader, understand the content.
Yeah, and you get really good guidelines on how to do that, and you're very supported by a single staff member. So a staff member will talk you through the process and what they expect, and you get some formative feedback on that before you get your final grade. So there's opportunity for feedback.
Thank you, and I think thank you to the panel as well, because I think we've got through all the questions pretty much. I know we're in a bit of a time, and I hope as a faculty we've answered all your questions. If not, you know, obviously you can always email them to admissions, and then we can answer them best we can. But key here is that we are a supported medical school, that we really care about our students, truly do care about students, and we do our best to make sure our students are supported throughout the course. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.